You're listening to the Radcast, a top 25 worldwide business podcast. If it's radical, we cover it. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the latest edition of the Radcast. They say, and we say, if it's radical, we cover it. Well, I think Jimmy Rex is pretty fucking radical, if you ask me. He's the founder of We Are the They. He's also the author of You End Up Where You're Heading and the host of the Jimmy Rex Show. What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, good to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me, my man.
My pleasure. I like your energy. I've been, absorbing. You hit my radar. The team put you in front of me and different things. And so love what you're doing. I like the vibe. And I just think, we need more Jimmys in the world.
Dude, I think there's this lost thing in the world today where people are like afraid to just really have fun, just share that they love their life. I made a birthday post this last year when it was on my birthday. I was just like all the things I love about myself. And a lot of people are like, what a narcissist asshole. And it's not. I really have done a lot of work to get to a place where I enjoy waking up every day and getting to be me. And so I'm glad that energy comes through, man. I think that, this isn't a test run. We only got one of these things. So I try to go all out in life.
Hey, man, I'm a firm believer in that. It's like, I see a lot of people, like they're saving up for the day. And I'm not talking about money saving, but like, dude, you get one shot at this thing. You can either go for it and enjoy it and make it everything that it can be, or you can sit around and hope that something wonderful happens to you. I think we have to go out there and make it for ourselves. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, I mean, my book, the one that you mentioned, the whole point of it is people don't regret the decisions that they make. They regret, when they're dying that they didn't, really go for it. And so the subtitle of my book is The Hidden Dangers of Living a Safe Life. And that's really what I try to preach. That's what my group is all about. It's about just going for it. I mean, very rarely in life, if you take a risk or a chance, even if it doesn't work, do you regret it, because you get the life lesson that can only come from that. And so I just think that, if I could preach any message to people, and so it's like all the successful people I know, like, you're 400 episodes in on your podcast. I'm almost 500 episodes on mine. It's like all the successful people have one thing in common. They take action. They do things. They move. They go for it. And so I just think that's such a beautiful message that you share.
Yeah, man. I think it's like this paralysis, like now knowledge is so cheap and it's so much at us. It's like a paralysis from analysis for a lot of people. Like, and I'll even find myself sometimes like I'm absorbing or looking, and it's like, and I kind of just live by my own way, but like the distractions are there. And so it's like, I have to like clear that to go like get some real shit done. And I think a lot of people just struggle with the distractions combined with their own, the finding the perfect time, it's like, we're going to find the perfect time.
Yeah, it was like, it's so noisy out there, right? Like when I started my podcast, I waited for like 3-4 months before and I've been going for 7 years. And so I was ahead of the game too, like yourself. But I remember I was just sitting on it and I was like, Jimmy, you got to just start. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking to myself, okay, I'm just going to do it. My first episode, I interviewed this guy, and I had a friend of mine, his 2 kids were in high school and they were trying to get into video. And so they're like, let us, video it and record it. And so I was like, okay. So, one guy had a boom mic, like we're sitting in my office, and the other guy's on the camera. And dude, I'm like 12 minutes into the interview and I run out of things to say. I have nothing to say. So my buddy freaking starts asking my guest questions from behind the camera. That's my first podcast, and it could not have been worse. It's like, I had this girl on the other day. She's a 23-year-old baller. She's got like 20 employees already. And her whole thing is like, lean into the cringe, like get comfortable being cringy, because it's going to feel that way. And, now, I just got done interviewing Johnny Manziel and Jerry West. And, I had the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, and all these different people. But it started with the cringiest thing you've ever seen in your life, not that long ago, honestly.
But the key is sticking with it, right? You obviously got through the cringe. Mm-hmm. I did the same. I've been like cataloging a few episodes, not because I didn't want it out there, but like just wanting to like get more curated with like some of the content. And I'm like, man, we've come a long way, baby. But you just have to get, I don't know, you got to get comfortable with it. I almost think my my best blinders are the fact that I don't look in the rearview mirror. You know, like it's like, because if I did, it gets ugly. Like I'll talk about it if people ask me about it, but like me personally, it's all forward. Like you know, it's the reason I don't have a rearview mirror in my virtual car.
That's fair. Yeah. One thing that I like to tell my guys that I coach is I say, move on from all experiences quickly, both the good ones and the bad ones. Just as many people get caught up in, you know, what they did or like the good stuff as they do the bad stuff. It's like, hey, awesome. You live it, be present, create the moment, and then move on to the next thing. Like, don't live in that spot, you know, like, oh, I once had this great thing going.
So right. I love it, man. I know we're on the same vibe here, but Jimmy, let's back up. Let's tell a little bit of the Jimmy Rex story and, you know, set the table for everybody listening. Who is Jimmy? What has Jimmy been doing? Let's talk Jimmy.
Yeah, man. You know, ever since I was a kid, I was just one of those, you know, my parents said I just was a free spirit, just wanted to do all the things and, you know, wasn't afraid to take big risks. Even as a child, I would just be going for it, doing different things. But I, you know, started a meat company when I was 21. I had a Christmas light business and I got into real estate at 23. And, you know, my second full year in the industry, I sold 98 homes, just me and an assistant, was one of the 2 salespeople for, you know, salesperson of the year and kind of just made a career out of that. Next, I went through the ups and downs of the real estate market, lost everything in 2007, 8, 9. But, you know, stuck with it, worked through that, paid off my debts and ultimately ended up becoming, you know, one of the top agents in the country. Me and my real estate partner, Tyler, between us, we've sold almost 7,000 houses now. And, you know, I turned that over to him about a year and a half ago when I decided I was going to go all in on my coaching program, We Are the They. But that kind of came, I just kind of, after so many years of doing real estate, I kind of had this epiphany that I wanted to do something that was more impactful, more meaningful for the world. And so I really started leaning into that. It took me about 2 years to come up with what that was going to be, but that led me to what I'm doing now. So yeah, man, it's I love all things business. I've invested in over 30 companies. I own a ton of real estate myself, have a flip business, but I just love, you know, I just love living and learning and trying things. And I love the game of business, the game of money. More than anything, I love to build networks and connections and relationships. That's kind of my specialty, I guess you could say.
What's, I mean, I always have a soft place in my heart for I talked to a lot of people that went through that 7, 8, you know, time period with real estate, the train wreck that was. I mean, it obviously didn't stop you from going on to bigger and better things, but is that one of the pinnacle like moments of hitting a wall, or you know, is that like you know, I think a lot of people always think and see, and we talk to successful people and we like to glorify the success, but it's not that I focus on it, but I just think people relate to, you know, when we all hit that brick wall.
Yeah, like let me dive into that a little bit. I mean, 2007, like I said, I had this huge success. I sold 98 houses. I was printing money, man. I had checks I didn't even remember to cash. Like it was as crazy as it was on the movies. And all of a sudden, market tanks. You know, I mean, it went from. I mean, all of a sudden, I was God's gift to real estate, and I couldn't sell a house. I mean, everybody put zero down, so everyone was upside down. The market fell 20, 30%. I mean, you literally would sit across from people that were like upside down, 100 grand on their house and had no money. And every house on their street was for sale. And, you know, I watched couples divorce across from me, across the table, because they made bad decisions, yelling at each other. I mean, crazy stuff, man. And it was really hard. I remember, you know, I had, at one point I was carrying like 60 houses for sale. I called a lot of for sale by owners back then. And that's how I got out of my business. And, I mean, I think I sold 25 to 30 homes that year. And, you know, from going from 100 the year before in 2008. And I had to tell my assistant to hold his check a few times. And, you know, I remember and the worst part is people thought I had money because I'd had a lot of success already. And so it was like, you're dead broke. I'd made bad investments in real estate myself. I lost a bunch of money on. And so you're dead broke. You've had this success, but nothing's working. All of my industry is just a mess. And I had a quote that I put on my wall because I was still calling for sale by owners every day. That's how I built my business. And it said, show up today for your future self. You never know who's going to need you. And the reason I had that quote is because, you know, as a salesperson, it's only so motivating to pay off bills and pay off debt. Like it's only so much fun to get in the office every day when you're just bobbing to keep your head above water. And so I said, I want to be able to show up, for my future self. And people ask me that question. They're like, well, how'd you get through it? Like, how did you power through that? And I kind of jokingly say, I don't know, what was my other option? Like, be a loser. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't know any other way. I just like did it. It just did, but it was brutal, man. It was, all these people are depending upon you as their best chance. And I was their best hope, but it wasn't a very good one. And you just power through, man. And I'm so grateful for that time because it truly was the hardest time in my life. By far, I wouldn't want to do it again. I won't do it again. But at the end of the day, that really is who created me in that time frame. And you learn a lot about yourself when your back's up against the wall. And, you have Mike Tyson says, nobody knows who they are until they've been punched in the face. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is what it looks like. But yeah, it was brutal, man. I can get emotional talking about it because I didn't know what my future was going to bring. I didn't know what my life was going to look like. I just knew every day, man, I could go hug that kid that I just stayed on the phones, just made the calls, just worked his ass off. And I worked twice as hard in 2008 and 2009 than I did in 06, 07 and sold a third of the houses. It was brutal. It was bad.
I think though, but you summarize it, we almost get back to where we started. It's that action, right? Like when shit hits the fan and it's all going wrong, it's either put up or shut up. It's either keep coming to work and keep putting in the stuff or trying something new, but it's all about action because you can sit there and have a pity party and be a loser. And look, I bring clowns and balloons to my pity parties, but they last about an hour. I will celebrate that pity for an hour really hard, but then you just got to get one foot in front of the other and start doing shit. And I think that's what turns the people that, turn that loss into 10 more wins or learn from it. The ones that don't is if you sour and continue to look in the rearview mirror or if you keep putting, stacking the activity together. And it sounds like you did just that.
Yeah. I had the right coaches. I had the right mindset around it. I think that's the battle you got to win every day when you're in that position. And I just knew if I won the day from, 7 a.m. till 11 a.m., if I just did what I was supposed to for those 4 hours, that everything else would take care of itself. And there's a really beautiful scene from the movie A League of Their Own. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of an older movie now, but Tom Hanks is the coach of this team, Jimmy Dugan, and, Gina Davis is the star player. And about halfway through the movie, she's packing up and she's leaving. And he goes over there. He's like, Tom Hanks, he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm going home. I'm done. I'm done playing. And he's like, what do you mean you're done playing? You're our best player. And she goes, it just got to be too hard. And he looks at her and he says, it's supposed to be hard. The hard is what makes it great. And it's just one of my all-time favorite movie quotes. It's like, yeah, who the hell wants to sign up for easy? Like at the end of the day, it is. I remember from 2016 to 2019. My life was just a breeze. It really was. I was closing a couple hundred homes a year. I was traveling the world. I've been to 106 countries. I was living it up every way you can and just having a blast, selling a ton of real estate, making a ton of money. And I was bored out of my mind. I was like, I got to this point. I remember coming into 2020. I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be a really hard year for me. And people would say, why? And I said, well, because I know I'm finally ready to grow again. And that's what I had signed up for. And I didn't, I was not made for a pandemic world. I'll say that. Like I did not see just how difficult it could get. But at the end of the day, got in a wreck that year going 80 miles an hour, hit a parked car that was drunk on the freeway and all sorts of crazy stuff. It was a year, but yeah, man. And, but that's where you grow. That's the beautiful part. That's the parts you like to talk about later. And in the moment, it doesn't feel beautiful. But when you look back, it's like, man, that's the part that makes it great.
Well, I love the quote, easy come, easy go. It's like, when it comes to easy, it's no different than money or anything else. We spend it really easy. We do. And when you work through it, like it has more value. And whether, it's not always just the money, it's just, you're just going to have more, I think, mental marks in the book of your own life looking back, the harder or more challenging or more meaningful that things are versus stuff that might have come too easy. It might have been too good to be true. It's just funny how when I reflect on my life, I look at things and it's like the most meaningful things were the hardest.
100%. I mean, it's, if I would have, like the struggle of my life has been, I've just never found that one love. Right. But it's led me down all these paths to self-development. I'm always working on myself and improving myself. And I'll say this, man, when I finally get to that spot, I'm no longer ever going to take for granted. I would have completely, I took so many people for granted in my 20s and everything. It was just easy come, easy go, like you said. And you kind of like, I would have never appreciated what I had. And I think that life has a funny way of teaching us that, whether it's money. I remember when the whole crypto thing, and I bought a bunch of coins that, the 10X, I made a couple $1,000,000. I was like, holy shit, this is the easiest thing ever. But then I forgot my password to get into my account, and it took me 2 years to find it. By the time I found it, it was back down to what I started with. It's like easy come, easy go, man. I was like, shit, yeah, it really is. Like, that's just I feel like that's the karma of the universe, and it's the way that God works.
I think so. So now we're empowering men to lead exceptional lives. Exceptional is an interesting word. It's different for everyone. How do you, we talked about some of the tenets of your course and what is exceptional?
Yeah. I have a book that's coming out in February, just finished it. It's called Be One. It comes from the quote from Marcus Aurelius, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. And in the book, I kind of speak to this a little bit. I use an example of a buddy of mine, and, he's divorced. He's got a daughter. He's a lawyer, just pretty normal guy in a lot of respects. But that dude has figured out how to co-parent with his ex-wife. They have dinner every night with their daughter. He goes to work. He shows up. He provides. It's not sexy, but that's extraordinary. That's an exceptional man. That's what it is. And sometimes they're not wearing capes or the loudest guys on the internet. Sometimes that's all it is. But it's a dude that essentially is, decided to be the hero of his own story. He's taken control of his own life. He's got his house in order. The 3 pillars of my program are vulnerable, authentic, and in integrity. And I use those because a mentor taught me once that when we are those 3 things, that's when we're the most lovable. We can trust the love that we're getting because we're being honest about who we are. And so, my program really helps men to figure that out for themselves and to take them through this path. It's the same one that I basically went on for 10 years. And I just took all the best things that I learned from going to different conferences, seminars, books, coaches, mentors that I had. I've hired some of the top humans alive to coach me, and I want to learn from the best people that inspire me. I just go straight to them and try to shortcut the information gap. My current coach, Ed Milet, he wrote the foreword for my book. He's been a huge mentor for me, and so many others along the way that I've had. And so I just took all these things that, success leaves clues. And if you can help men, one thing I've learned is you can't change anybody, but what you can do is you can create a container safe enough and then inspire them to change themselves. And so if I could sum up what my program does, it's those things. And then, there's other pillars of it. You want to, you have to have mentors, and you have to have accountability. So we have accountability to each other. And then, you have to create, a brotherhood, these guys that are there for each other, that hold each other accountable and that support each other. And just in all aspects of life can be there to help in whatever way it needs to be.
Man, a lot of that resonates with me, probably being in a similar age bracket and time period and things like that. But the big thing, like, was your first tenet, like, vulnerability is really hard for a lot of guys. And I think in today's world, maybe it's getting better, maybe, but I think it's, everybody's a tough guy. It's, we're taught, and brought up in certain ways that, vulnerability is a weakness. And I'd really love to break down like how you coach through that and like what your perspective is in today's, landscape.
Sure. Yeah. One of the mantras that we have is vulnerability is a superpower, because it's designed to overcome that whole vulnerability as a weakness. Here's the bottom line is we think that the parts of us that are the ugliest are the things that people would judge us or hate us or not love us for. And every, man's 2 biggest fears are they're not lovable and they're not enough. And so if we have these things, if we think, oh man, if people knew this about me, they wouldn't love me. Right. And so I'll give you an example. We had a dude in my program about 4 months ago. We did a breathwork session, and in it, he had some breakthroughs, and we have sharing time afterwards. Everybody gets to get up and share whatever they want about, the weekend and all the breakthroughs they had. And this dude got up and for the first time ever, he talked about he'd been sexually molested as a kid. He'd never told a soul. He'd never felt safe enough to do that. And in that environment, you can't be more vulnerable than that. Like everybody that, thinks, there's some really good examples of some of the influencers that have recently come out and talked about that, Lewis Howes and Bedros Keuilian, same thing happened to them, Steve Weatherford, some of these guys, which has kind of opened up this door, I think, for a lot of more people to see like, that you're not broken because this happened to you. But the reality is like 1 in 5 men have had that happen, unfortunately, to them. And so when he got up and shared this, he said, these words have never come out of my mouth. And he talked about this experience. And we all just freaking, as he's balling, we all just freaking loved on him. 50 dudes giving him this big group hug. And then he felt supported. And what it does, and so you said, how do you help men be vulnerable? Well, you create a container safe again. And so you show them. And so I go first. I get a little bit vulnerable. I talk about some of my own struggles, things that I've working on currently, things that I've worked through, things that I've, not so pretty about my story. And the truth is like, people are like, well, how do you know your program works? I'm like, I'm the best example of this thing. I mean, we now have 350 men that have gone through the program, but up until then it was like, look, for my own self, I know this stuff works. And so that's why I was confident in starting it. But ultimately, by going first, and then I have a couple other people share, you create this space where they go, shit, I've always wanted to talk about this. I've never felt like I could be accepted doing it, but that guy just shared and that guy just shared. And, we just got back, we were doing a houseboat trip, and one of the guys in our group, he's been married for less than a year, and we have these mini masterminds. 10 of us will get around, and every one person will share for 3 minutes a problem they have in their personal or business life, and then the other 9 guys will help them work through it for the next 12 minutes, just asking questions and advice, things like that. And he said, I got married, and I don't know if I want to be married. Like sometimes I just want to be with the boys. I think I got married too young. He's in his young 20s. And he's bawling, he's sharing this. And he's like, I didn't think I could ever share this with anybody. And ultimately we were able to help him see that, like, where he's feeling trapped and stuck, like, hey man, there's some other options here. Like, have you talked to your wife about this? Like, let's get clear on that. And all of a sudden, he feels like this weight, he said, he just was able to put down, and all of a sudden, but he felt safe to talk about it, because before him, one of the guys that talked about how he's been working through, he used to have a porn addiction. Now he wants to help other men overcome that. He's a kid, and it's like 25-year-old kid, and then there's another one that talked about how he hates his job, and we're like with people from his company, and he's like, yeah, 85% of the time I hate going to work, and I don't know if I'm gonna do it any longer. And so as people are getting vulnerable, like they're willing to share, they're like, oh, finally, I have a place where I won't be judged for these thoughts and these feelings that I've had. And for men, it's not, and by the way, and vulnerability is not for everybody in every situation. Like a lot of people will use it against you. And that's where it gets a bad rap, I think, is, when it's exposed to the wrong people and they try to hold that against you. And so we make sure that people understand, there's boundaries to being a part of this group. There's strict rules about sharing and things like that outside the group. And then we just create that atmosphere where you would never do that to one of your other, one of your brothers. And so anyway, I think when it comes to vulnerability, though, I think it's helping people see it and see the benefits of it. Because right now people hear, they're like, no way, I'm just, that only is going to bring me pain. But when you show them that it's going to actually relieve your pain, that it's going to lessen your pain, that's when people want to be vulnerable.
I love that. I love the creating the safe, space, so to speak, for all that to take place. I mean, that's the key. And when I think about the title, we are the they. I mean, I think I know where my mind takes it when I think you're saying. But let's just be clear. I mean, explain to me kind of the name and the purpose around the name.
Yeah, man, this name is really special to me. And so I work with a group. I used to work with a group. You've probably seen the new movie that came out. If you haven't seen it, you've heard of it, called The Sound of Freedom.
Yep.
It's a story of, these guys that go and help rescue kids from being sex trafficked. So I used to work with that organization, Operation Underground Railroad. I worked with Tim directly, the guy that the movie's about, and had the chance to go on over a dozen ops with that group, rescue over 100 kids. And we had one in particular in Latin America. I came home from a super dangerous op. I mean, these guys had guns. They had a perimeter set. If any point they would have known what we were there for, we were dead. I mean, true story. And on my way home but we ended up getting them arrested and did the takedown, the whole thing. And on the way home from the airport, my girlfriend had picked me up in my truck, and I'm telling her about it. And I'm all excited. We just had this amazing experience. And she pulls over the truck and she's like, Jimmy, I don't think I want you to do this anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I just told you, we just rescued these kids. We had this amazing experience. She goes, I know, but it's a bad environment. And it's like really dangerous. I was like, this can be part of my life's mission. Like this is like the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. And she goes, I know, but why can't they just go do it? And without even thinking, I just said, well, there is no they. Like, we are the they. And when I said that, I was like, oh shit. Like I got goosebumps. I was like, damn, that's a model for life right there. You know, people see problems in the world. They see things that need to be changed. And they're like, they need to do something about it. But no, there is no they. Like we are the they. And so that's kind of the purpose of the whole thing. That's what the meaning of it is. And that's why it, it holds a lot of, it's very dear to my heart.
What would you say is the, under that premise and, the tenets that make up the program, like when someone, is it kind of like a long, ongoing like membership? Like once you're in, like, or is it like, I know there's tenets to the program. Yeah. What's like the one takeaway, or like, when's it done, or is it meant to be an ongoing thing?
Yeah. So it's a 2.5 year program. The leadership program there's a tribe that anybody can join, come and go anytime. And that's, if you just want community, you want to learn new things every week. We have a couple of conferences a year and a call every week. You get put in one of the mini masterminds. That's our tribe. That's for anybody at any time to come. Anybody that, qualifies or whatever from the application. We take anybody that's not, a dipshit or something. But, and then we have the leadership group is more intense. That's the one that's 2.5 year program. And we have 10 different sections to the course. So we have 10 weekends we get together once a quarter for 2.5 years, 10 different sections we cover of life and how to be, a superior man. And at the end of the 2.5 years, there's an opportunity for those that want to. So those that, finish and they're kind of like, I want to stay a part of this, but I don't want to be a part of the next part of it. They go into the tribe forever. They're comped for life into the tribe. They're a part of the community of We Are the They. For those that want to, there's an opportunity for them to then lead their own groups and kind of help with the expansion of the movement, basically.
I love it.
Because we know there's a lot more growth in teaching something than learning it. And so, it's once they've gone through the program, I partner 3 or 4 guys up together, and then they get to lead people. I've only been doing it for under 2 years. And so we haven't even finished our first group yet, but they finish in May of next year.
Great. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Switching gears a bit to the real estate. So walk me through, you told me your original kind of like growth and like strategy was calling those people that were doing for sale by owner. Why should you never do for sale by owner?
I actually liked for sale by owners. There's pluses and minuses to it. Here's the plus. They need to sell their house. They don't have a realtor, and they put a big ass red sign in front of their yard to let you know it. That being said, you're trading time for dollars. You have to call, and it's a constant game of getting more of them. And so it's exhausting work. I would call, 30 to 40 a day to get one lead. I'd go on one appointment a day, and that would bring me 4 listings a week. So I was like the top agent in the county with that, but it's a grind, and you wear out and you burn out, which I did, which everyone that's done those has. And so, the nice thing about for sale by owners, like I said, is, they're motivated. And in 2010, I shifted my entire business, went away from for sale by owners because I realized that, I just wasn't making as much as it's very hard to expand and do more. My mind was pretty limited. I was capped at 100 deals a year. When I went outside of that, started really using social media and networking and throwing big events. I threw a lot of parties to get my clients, to be honest. I throw a monthly party with sometimes thousands of people, hundreds of people. I'll rent the water parks. I throw a fireworks show. This year we had over 10,000 people there. For Easter, I have a helicopter come drop tens of thousands of eggs on the kids and all this stuff. And so I started doing these huge parties and events, and my business grew to where my team was doing 500 deals a year. Our best year so far, we did 497. And so you're just pretty limited if you're doing for sale by owners. You're trading dollars for hours, and that's just the biggest drawback. But if you want to do a very efficient from a cost standpoint, for sale by owner is the way to go.
Yeah. How do you convince someone that thinks they can do, like a homeowner that's doing FSBO? Like how you it's funny. You'll appreciate this. Like, I was the best in the country at doing those calls. I really was. I would be put on stages in front of thousands of people, and they would literally have me role play. I'd call an actual for sale by owner and just do my script. And, I hired the best coach. So I had a script that I'd memorized. I made it sound like it was my own. And to this day, I haven't called it since 2010. I guarantee I could whip it out word for word. I did it thousands and thousands of times. But basically, you take them through, you just keep them on the phone, man. You just the whole goal where people get screwed up is they get caught up in what the person's saying. And my whole goal is to get an appointment. So no matter what you said,
I mean, there's only so many objections. So every time I got a new one, I'd write it down. I'd figure out 3 ways to answer it. And then I would memorize it. And so like everything you said, no matter what you said to me, I had the perfect objection handler. And so I would just power through. And I had this game I played called I Don't Hang Up. And so I would just keep talking until eventually they either gave me the appointment or hung up. And 29 out of 30 hung up on me, but I got really good at taking rejection. I didn't take it personally.
Do you think people should for sale by owner their home? Like in today's world?
No. I mean, I've sold homes in other states that, or I've bought homes in other states. I always use a realtor. I mean, look, here's the problem with the real estate industry. I can speak pretty openly about this. The top 15% of agents are incredible. They will save you money. They will save you time. They'll take care of you. They'll make sure you get it done right. It's that other 85% that are half-assing it. They're just not dialed in. They got in because they knew a few people that needed a seller, buyer. Their uncle did it and it looked easy. Those people, unfortunately, give the business a bad rap because there's a lot of them. And frankly, a lot of times you probably would have been better off selling it without them. But, you get a good agent. I mean, it's worth it to pay them. I'm 100% believer in that. And, I've bought commercial properties. I used a commercial agent, paid them a full commission. I've bought properties in other states, always use an agent, stuff like that. Yeah. In fact, I just sold a lot in Idaho and I just hired the lady, the local lady up there and she sold it. And I paid her a commission, the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think like you said, it's gotten, there's the bad agents that give it the bad rap, but it's still different than a lot of different things. You hire an expert to handle. It's one of the biggest transactions, most people make. And so there's a lot of detail involved that comes into play. And I think people think it's going to be a lot easier than it will be.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is like, that's why calling for sale by owners was so nice. Like those people, all they wanted was to get their house sold. And so when you can show them, one of the questions I would ask them on the phone when they was just like, no, I'm not going to sell. I'm not going to use an agent. I'm not going to use an agent. I just had a question. I said, hey, if you can net the same amount of money, but I get to take care of it for you, like, is that interesting to you? And they're like, well, yeah. How are you going to do that? That's what I want to show you. Give me 25 minutes. I'll come over. I'll break it down. If you don't like what I have to say, kick me out and I'll leave. But in the meantime, let me at least show you what I'm doing. Worst case, I'll give you a couple ideas. Work better to sell your house. I've sold 120 homes this year. I know what I'm doing. At the end of the day, it's 25 minutes. If you don't like me, I'll leave. Fair? All right, come over. And boom, get them.
There you go. Something tells me you could sell anything though. So we got the Jimmy Rex Show podcast. We're almost at 500 episodes. Favorite moment? You're 500 in, like it's probably a lot, but anything that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple episodes. I had this list of like 25 people that were on my hit list when I started that were like my dream list. If like I did not hold back, and we're talking like the biggest names I could think of. And I had a couple of them I've had on. Lewis Howes recently, Grant Cardone I had on, a couple of guys that are just in my industry that I really look up to. I was able to recently, just barely, the documentary of Johnny Manziel came out and I was able to do one with him. It wasn't my best podcast, but, I've been able to get a lot of, it's funny, like when I first started, I thought it was going to be about, the famous people I knew that I could get on, but it's actually all my favorite episodes are like my buddies. So about every 5th episode, I'll just throw a friend on me. They're all badasses in their own right, but we have these beautiful, deep conversations. I had one recently, my buddy Drew, it was about 5-6 episodes ago. He's in my program and he had a beautiful experience. Our second mastermind we ever did together, about 6 months into the program, he had this giant breakthrough when he was 8. And he shares this on the podcast and just gets super emotional. It's just a beautiful, it's been shared tens of thousands of times now because of what he said. But basically when he was 8 years old, his little brother died who was 6. And he always, he had this shell on him when he got in our program. He was just really locked up. He just didn't want to show his emotions to anybody. And then we did this cacao ceremony and then we shared and he had this huge breakthrough that he'd blamed his mom and dad because they didn't take care of him. And he realized in this ceremony that like, they were just trying to stay alive for themselves. They couldn't take care of him. They just lost their 6-year-old son. He has a 6-year-old now, so he can understand it. And he's just bawling. He's like, and he just shed this layer off. And afterwards, he realized he needed to call and tell his mom. And so he calls his mom that right after the ceremony and he told her, he forgave her. And she's like, I've waited, so many years for this call. I'm so grateful that, we can have, and just this beautiful story. And he's telling the story and he's pretty emotional on the podcast. And I'm like, to capture that and be able to share stuff like that, like those are the memories. Those are the reasons why as you're listening to it, I'm like, holy shit, this is good. Like, these episodes are awesome too. Like people need to see what success looks like, right? So I've had all these CEOs and entrepreneurs on. I've had people that just have the right mindset about life. And I love those episodes. And then every now and then you get one where you're like, whoa, that just happened on my episode. Like that just happened on my podcast, and really just these huge breakthroughs. I'm in Utah, and there's a very prominent religion here that's very well known, the Mormon church. And I left that church about 10 years ago. I have nothing but love for it. But one of the things that helped me work through some of my traumas and things was ayahuasca. And I'm not a huge proponent that everybody should do it, but for me personally, it was beautiful. And I got one of the leaders of that church went to Costa Rica and did ayahuasca, got him on my podcast. And he's probably the highest ranking official to ever talk about doing psychedelics from that church. And so it was really cool because a lot of people that were in my shoes that their families are like, you're doing drugs or what are you doing? And it got shared over 100,000 times as well, because so many people were able to reached out to me and were like, man, I finally can show something to my parents so they don't think I'm crazy or I'm doing drugs and all this stuff. And so that was a really cool episode for me too, is, I knew where he stood with his experience. And so I asked him a question where I said, hey, did doing ayahuasca strengthen your testimony of the church, and he said, yes. And it went super viral just because I knew what he was going to say, and people needed that. And so that was like one of those bridge moments where I was able to connect the community in different ways. And so those episodes mean a lot to me where I've been able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I think podcasting is like the greatest form of media now, because of the depth of the conversation that you can have over a 20, 30, 40 hour long session. Everything is so marginalized down to the news clips and different things like that. And there's certainly highlights that come from the episodes, but I think the totality of the medium in having just in-depth conversations and getting to know someone, it's hard to match it, because it's just like now, we're turning our phones off. We've turned off the distractions. You're telling a story. I'm listening intently. And unfortunately, that just doesn't happen very much in our, environments these days. And I think it can be so rewarding in a lot of different ways. And then just the impact it can have on other people that listen. I think it's just an awesome medium.
Oh, I agree. And, and it's so nice to listen to, because we learn the most from other people's experiences and other people's stories. And it's hard to fight somebody's experience. It's just like, well, that's, your experience. And so, when I was up and coming, I would study a lot of books about people that had success or companies that had success. I'd read the documentary or the biographies of them or watch documentaries, because I wanted to learn success leaves clues. And I think with podcasting, you get that so fast and so much. I mean, what I've shared here, if you're a real estate agent, you're like, okay, there's some things to learn here. You dig into my podcast for, a couple hours, you can really quickly expedite your real estate career if that's what you want to do. And there's just so much to pick up on those kinds of things. And I agree. It's a really beautiful way to have a conversation that is a lost art in today's society. It is. It's one of the things we do at my program. I think that's so effective is people put their phones away. We're just present with each other. When you're just present, magic happens. We think that it's this special, amazing thing we have to set up. The truth is, a lot of times you got to put your damn phone away and go outside.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a lot easier than we make it out to be, but it is being present is one of the hardest things to do for people now because of just the distractions, but it does lead to impactful conversations and meaningful moments. And Jimmy, I really appreciate all the knowledge and for you coming on the show today. We've talked about a lot of your programs. Let's tell everybody where they can keep up with everything you got going on and how they might can reach out for any of this stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, I share everything through my Instagram, which is Mr. Jimmy Rex. When I have speaking gigs, when my book comes out, with my conference coming up in February next year, all the podcasts that I do, I always post it all through my Instagram. So that's the best place to follow me, Mr. Jimmy Rex. And I personally answer all my DMs. And so hit me up anytime, and happy to help and connect any way I can with you and your audience, man.
I love it, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing knowledge. And I look forward to staying in touch and seeing how we can help one another.
Dude, likewise. Thank you, Ryan. Keep kicking butt, dude.
Hey guys, you know to find us, theradcast.com. We've got a great search feature. Search for Jimmy Rex. You'll find all of today's content, all of the links to Jimmy's stuff, and of course, all the links to our stuff. Do us a favor. If you like this episode, leave it a review and go give Jimmy a DM and tell him you appreciate him, because we do. You know to find me. I'm at Ryan Alford, verified on every platform before you could buy it. We'll see you next time on the Radcast.
To listen or watch full episodes, visit us on the web at theradcast.com or follow us on social media at our Instagram account, the.rad.cast, or at Ryan Alford. Stay radical.